All right, so get this. Have you ever wondered, like, how to spot a genuine visionary versus someone who's just really good at playing the game?
Oh, that's a fascinating question, especially in a world where image is everything.
Yeah, and especially I think in like places like Hollywood, Bollywood, places where there's so much emphasis on personality.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today in the dazzling and dramatic world of Bollywood.
Ooh, love it.
We're going to be taking a look at Vivek Oberoi.
Interesting choice.
He's had quite a career, right? I mean, he's been critically acclaimed. He's had his fair share of controversy.
For sure.
He's dabbled in business philanthropy, even hinted at politics.
Wow, he's done a lot.
So is he really trying to change the world, or is this all just like a big act?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
That is the million-dollar question. And to figure that out,
Yeah.
I think we got to start back at the beginning, right? His early years in Bollywood. I mean, he bursts onto the scene in the early 2000s, wins awards right away. Company and Satya, both in 2002.
Huge hits.
Talk about a dream start.
Yeah, really hitting the ground running.
But here's the thing. He kind of already had a foot in the door, right?
Oh, how so?
Well, his father, Suresh Oberoi, is a pretty well-known actor himself. So those connections, they can be a double-edged sword.
Absolutely.
And then you've got his wife, Priyanka Alva. Her family is like super prominent in Indian politics.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Her dad was a minister in the Karnataka government and like the vice president of Janata Dal.
Wow, so we're talking serious political clout.
Yeah. So you got to wonder, did those connections help him or did they make things even harder? Like trying to step out of that shadow.
Yeah, that's a tough one to navigate for
For
sure.
sure. And we see that play out time and time again, right?
Yeah.
Family ties, they can either like pave the way or they can just add a ton of pressure.
Totally. You're always being compared to what came before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But regardless of like, those connections helping or hurting, there's no denying he became a big name in Bollywood, at least for a while.
Yeah, he had a good run.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
But then 2003 hits, and things take a really dramatic turn with the Salman Khan controversy.
Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Salman Khan is like the Tom Cruise of Bollywood.
Gotcha. Huge star.
Huge star. And Vivek, basically, he holds this press conference and accuses Salman Khan of harassing and threatening him because of his relationship with Aishwarya Rai.
Whoa, that's a bold move.
Right, it's a huge gamble to take on someone with that much power and influence.
Yeah, you don't see that every day.
It made headlines everywhere, and according to Vivek, the fallout from that was brutal.
What happened?
Well, he claims that powerful figures in Bollywood basically conspired to sabotage his career.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, and that's not all. He also said that he started getting threats from the underworld, like actual threats against him and his family.
That's terrifying, and it really makes you think about the dark side of fame,
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
what lengths will people go to protect their power?
Right, and you have to wonder, was he really blacklisted, or was this a publicity stunt that just backfired horribly?
Right, like how much of this is real and how much is just perception?
Exactly. And did it actually impact his career in the long run, or was it just a temporary setback?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know for sure, right? Like, we weren't there.
Definitely. And there's always more than one side to every story.
Exactly. But there's no denying that this controversy, like, it really cast a long shadow over his career.
Yeah, it's hard to come back from something like that.
For sure. But he did try to move forward. I mean, his filmography is really interesting. It's got a mix of successes and flops. Shootout at Lokhandwala, Mission Istanbul, even that superhero movie, Krish 3.
Yeah, I've heard of some of those.
He wasn't afraid to take risks and try different genres, for sure.
Definitely shows versatility.
But then there's this whole other thing that's really interesting is that biopic he starred in about the current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi.
PM Narendra Modi, right?
Exactly. That was released in 2019. Yeah. And it sparked a whole new wave of controversy.
I can imagine that was pretty politically charged.
Oh, yeah. Some people saw it as a blatant attempt to, align himself politically, while others were like, this is straight up propaganda.
Yikes, so it really divided people.
Oh, absolutely. There were accusations of it being used to try and manipulate public opinion before elections.
Wow, so it became a much bigger issue than just a film.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Even the Election Commission of India got involved. They actually delayed the release of the film until after the elections were over.
Seriously, that's wild.
It was a really tense situation. And it makes you wonder, was Vivek genuinely drawn to the role? Or was this a calculated move to get in good with a powerful figure?
Yeah, and, with his hints about maybe running for office someday, it definitely adds another layer to the whole thing.
For sure, it makes you question his motivations, right?
Absolutely. Like, is he
Okay.
being genuine or is he playing the game?
Exactly. And to figure that out, I think we need to look at another piece of the puzzle, his involvement in philanthropy and business ventures.
Yeah, that should give us some more insight.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got his two foundations, the Yashidara Oberoi Foundation and the One Foundation.
And those are focused on.
So the Yashidara Oberoi Foundation, it's named after his mother, and it focuses on helping impoverished communities. And then the One Foundation that seems to have like a broader focus, tackling things like girls' education and access to healthcare.
Okay, so pretty admirable causes.
Right. But that's where things get tricky because you got to wonder, are these foundations actually making a real difference? Or are they more about like generating good PR for Vivek?
Yeah, it's easy to be cynical, especially when someone's in the public eye like that.
Exactly. So we really need to dig deeper,
Hmm.
look beyond the headlines. Are they actually achieving concrete results? Are they being transparent about how they operate their finances? Like, do we have independent reports that verify their claims and impact?
Yeah, those are the important questions to ask.
For sure. And we can't forget about his business venture, either Karrn Infrastructure.
What's that all about?
So it's a real estate company, and they focus on affordable housing solutions in India, which is a huge need.
That's great if they're actually making a difference.
Exactly. But that's the thing, right? We need to see the proofs, like how many housing units have they actually built? What's the quality of construction like? Are these places truly affordable for everyday people? Or is this just another luxury development disguised as something good?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easy to greenwash things these days.
Totally. And then there's also the potential for conflicts of interest, especially if he's serious about a political career.
Oh, absolutely. Like, could these ventures be a way to gain favor with voters or influence in certain areas?
Exactly. Those are the kinds of questions that like investigative journalists and political analysts would be all over.
For sure.
It's like we're trying to put together this puzzle, right?
I like that analogy.
We have all these different pieces, the family connections, the early success, the Salman Khan controversy, the films, the philanthropy, the business ventures, the political aspirations, and we're trying to figure out what picture they make when you put them all together.
It's definitely a complex picture.
And to make things even more complicated, Vivek has said that he's actually been offered chances to run for office before, but he chose not to.
Really? When was this?
He said it was back in 2004, he claims both regional and national parties approached him.
Wow. So he was already on their radar back then.
Yeah, so why didn't he go for it? Was he waiting for the perfect opportunity, or was this just a way to stay relevant, keep his name out there?
Yeah. Create that buzz like he's in demand.
Exactly. It all comes back to figuring out what his true motivations are. Is he genuinely interested in serving the public, or is this all just a calculated game to get ahead?
That's the mystery we need to unravel.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit and go back to that 2003 press conference, remember, where Vivek claimed Salman Khan had harassed and threatened him because of Aishwarya Rai.
Yeah, that was a wild one.
He even said that he got like 41 calls from Salman, who was apparently drunk at the time.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty specific detail.
Right. It was definitely a bold move to make those accusations against someone like Salman Khan.
Yeah, he was risking a lot.
Definitely. And while we can't say for sure if he was actually blacklisted, it's hard to imagine that this didn't impact his career somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it created a huge scandal.
And it's important to remember, too, that this was a he said, she said situation.
True. We only really heard Vivek's side of things.
Exactly. So did he play the victim card, or was he genuinely wronged? It's tough to say.
Yeah, it's all about perception and who you choose to believe.
But regardless, it definitely painted him in a certain light.
Yeah.
A guy who stood up to a bully, even if that bully was a huge star.
Yeah, it gave him a certain image.
But it also raised questions about his judgment and his motives. Like,
Yeah.
was this a genuine cry for help, or was he manipulating the media for his own benefit?
It's hard to know what was going on in his head.
Yeah. And we may never know the full truth about what happened behind closed doors.
True, but we can speculate about the power dynamics at play in Bollywood, the influence of big studios and powerful individuals.
Yeah, it's a whole other world.
For sure, and what we do know is that this controversy had a lasting impact on Vivek's career. It's something that people still talk about and analyze today.
It's crazy how a single event can have such a ripple effect.
Yeah, it can change everything.
And then to make things even more complicated, you've got him taking on the role of Narendra Modi in that biopic.
Right, that seems like a very deliberate choice.
It's hard not to see it as him trying to align himself with a powerful political figure.
Yeah, it's definitely a strategic move.
PM Narendra Modi was controversial from the very beginning. People questioned its timing, its message, its objectivity. Like, was it really trying to be a fair portrayal, or was it just designed to sway public opinion?
Yeah, especially with the release being so close to the election.
Exactly. And the fact that the Election Commission of India stepped in to delay it just adds fuel to the fire.
Wow, so they saw it as a potential threat to the fairness of the election.
It seems that way, and it shows how much power Bollywood has in India.
For sure, it's a huge part of their culture.
So again, it makes you wonder about Vivek's motivations. Was he drawn to the role because he thought it would be a good acting challenge? Or was this all part of some bigger political play?
Yeah, it's a tough one to decipher.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion with Vivek.
Haha, I like that analogy.
And with each layer, we get a slightly different perspective on who he is and what drives him.
It's like a puzzle with no clear solution.
And to really understand the whole picture, we need to consider the bigger political climate in India at the time.
Oh, for sure. Context is everything.
Narendra Modi is a very polarizing figure. People either love him or hate him.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to make bold moves.
And by taking on that role, Vivek was stepping into a minefield.
Big time.
It was a risky move. But it also shows that he's not afraid of controversy.
Yeah, he's definitely willing to take risks.
But does that make him a visionary or just a really good at playing the game?
That's the question we're trying to answer.
And to do that, we need to keep digging, keep analyzing, and keep asking the tough questions.
Absolutely. We need to look beyond the surface and try to understand what truly motivates Vivek Oberoi.
And that's what we're going to do in part 2 of this deep dive, so stay tuned.
So we left off talking about Vivek's motivations, and it really is fascinating how someone can be praised for their charity work, but then you have all these questions about why they're really doing it.
Yeah, it's almost like there are two Vivek Oberoi. You know, the one trying to make a real difference, and then the one who's caught up in this world of fame and ambition.
It's a good point. Maybe that's the key to understanding him. You know, that duality, like he embodies this struggle that so many of us face, trying to do good, but also wanting recognition and success.
Right. And after looking at everything, his career, the controversies, his business ventures, the philanthropy, it all comes back to that central question. Is he a true visionary, or is he just really good at playing the game?
It's the million-dollar question, and honestly, after this deep dive, I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah, there's no simple label we can slap on him like grifter or gifted.
Exactly. His story, it's just so complicated. There's so many layers to it. You know, he's made mistakes, he's faced setbacks, but he's also shown real resilience and compassion. He's used his platform to try and help others.
So you're saying it's more about understanding the complexities of human nature than trying to put him in a box.
I think so. Vivek Oberoi, he's just like all of us. He's a product of his experiences, his ambitions, his values.
He's a real person with flaws and triumphs and contradictions.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's up to each of us to look at all the evidence and decide what we believe.
So to everyone listening, I think that the takeaway here is to keep digging, keep exploring Vivek Oberoi's story. Look at his work, both in film and philanthropy. Read his interviews, and really think critically about what he says.
Yeah, ask yourself, do you see genuine intentions or do you see a carefully constructed persona?
Exactly, because the truth is it's probably more complicated than it seems on the surface.
That's what makes these deep dives so interesting, right? It's all about encouraging people to think for themselves, question their assumptions, and recognize that there are always shades of gray.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot.
Me too. It's a good reminder that even in a world obsessed with image, it's our actions that truly matter.
Well said. That's something we should all keep in mind. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into Vivek Oberoi.
Sounds good.
But we'll be back soon with part 3 to explore even more layers of this complex and intriguing figure, so stay tuned. Okay, so we've talked about Vivek's family ties, his early success in Bollywood, that whole Salman Khan controversy, his films, his philanthropy work, his business ventures, and even his potential political ambitions. There's a lot to unpack.
It really is. He's led such a fascinating life full of ups and downs, you know, and I think what's really striking is how much he's reinvented himself over the years.
That's a good point. He's gone from romantic hero to action star to villain to biopic subject, and now he's this philanthropist and businessman, all while navigating these public scandals and controversies.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, you know, is this all part of some grand plan, or is he just figuring things out as he goes along?
Right. Like, is he strategically shaping his image, or is he just following his passions wherever they lead him?
It's a tough question to answer, and I think it's probably a bit of both, you know. He clearly has a drive to succeed, to make a name for himself, but he also seems to genuinely care about making a difference in the world.
Okay, so let's talk about those foundations a bit more.
Right.
Remember the Yashidara Oberoi Foundation and the One Foundation.
Yeah, the ones focused on helping the poor and empowering girls.
Right. So these foundations, they've been involved in some pretty impressive projects, like rebuilding that village in Tamil Nadu after the tsunami in 2004.
That's right. And they've also done a lot of work in education, healthcare, and disaster relief.
So on the surface, it looks like they're doing some really good work.
Definitely. And they've received a lot of praise for their efforts.
But then you dig a little deeper and you start to see some inconsistencies.
Oh, like what?
Well, there have been some questions raised about their transparency and accountability.
What do you mean?
Like there's not a lot of publicly available information about their finances or how they measure their impact.
Yeah, that's not a good look.
And there have been some allegations of mismanagement and even misuse of funds.
Oh, wow. So it's not as straightforward as it seems.
Exactly. And it's hard to know what to believe. There's always going to be some level of skepticism when it comes to celebrity charities.
Yeah, people are going to assume they're just doing it for the PR.
Right. But at the same time, we can't dismiss the good work they might be doing just because there are some unanswered questions.
Definitely. It's important to keep an open mind and look at all the evidence.
And when it comes to Vivek's business ventures, it's a similar story. His company, Karrn Infrastructure, they claim to be providing affordable housing solutions, which is a noble goal.
Yeah, housing is a huge issue in India.
But again, there are concerns about whether they're actually delivering on their promises.
Like, are they really building affordable homes, or is this just another way for the wealthy to profit off the poor?
Exactly. And there have been some reports of shoddy construction and delays in projects.
It's not encouraging.
And then there's the whole conflict of interest thing. If he's serious about a political career, these business ventures could be seen as a way to gain influence and support.
Right. It all starts to feel very calculated.
So where does that leave us? Are we any closer to answering the question, is Vivek Oberoi a grifter or gifted?
Honestly, I don't think there's a simple yes or no answer.
Yeah, I agree. It's more complicated than that.
He's a complex individual with a mix of admirable qualities and questionable actions.
And I think that's what makes him so fascinating to study.
Absolutely. He's a product of his environment, his ambitions, his values, and the choices he's made along the way.
So maybe the takeaway here is that we shouldn't try to put people into neat little boxes.
Yeah, everyone has their own unique story, their own set of motivations, and their own way of navigating the world.
And it's up to each of us to decide what we believe based on the evidence we see.
Exactly. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep an open mind.
That's great advice. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the life and career of Vivek Oberoi.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you about this.
Likewise, and to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
We encourage you to continue exploring Vivek's story on your own and come to your own conclusions.
And remember, there's always more to uncover, more to learn, and more to question, so stay curious and keep an eye out for our next deep dive.